In the year 2029, Earth had started to see strange things happening in the sky. It began with a series of odd signals. Satellites that had been flying in space for years started to malfunction, their usual operations disrupted by what appeared to be interference from an unknown source. It wasn't long before governments around the world took notice. These weren't simple technical glitches. This was something much bigger, something they couldn't yet explain. For years there had been whispers of strange objects in space, but they had always been dismissed as mere myths or conspiracy theories. But now, with these odd signals affecting satellites and other space-based technology, the world could no longer pretend nothing was happening. Quietly, in the shadows, global defense agencies began to activate their secret surveillance programs. These programs were designed to handle situations that the public could never know about, and what they were tracking now was something unlike anything they had seen before. At a NATO radar station in Greenland, deep in the Arctic Circle, things got even stranger. One night, the station picked up a massive, unidentified object entering Earth's atmosphere. It moved silently, its speed and trajectory unlike anything they had ever seen. It was smooth and incredibly fast, almost as if it were defying the laws of physics. The radar operators tried to track it, but the object was too quick. It didn't look like anything human-made. No airplane, no missile, no satellite. Whatever it was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Back in Washington, D.C., the military leaders and intelligence agencies were briefed. The reports were vague, and no one could agree on what was going on. But the one thing that was clear was that the world was facing something new, something dangerous perhaps. A decision was made to send a team of highly trained operatives to investigate the site where the object had landed. This team wasn't just any group of soldiers. Recon Unit 17, a special operations force, was selected for the mission. These were the best of the best, trained for the kind of covert, high-risk missions that most soldiers would never dream of. Their mission was simple: find the object, observe it, and report back. They were told to be careful and not engage with anything unless absolutely necessary. The team consisted of 5 highly skilled individuals, all with different areas of expertise. There was Lieutenant Kara Miles, the leader of the unit. She was calm, under pressure, quick-thinking, and respected by her team. Then there was Sergeant Marcus Reed, a tech genius who could hack into any system and decode any signal. Specialist Emily Wu was an expert in environmental sciences and could navigate through any terrain. Corporal John Jax Hernandez, the team's sharpshooter, was known for his precision under fire. Finally, Private Alex Axe Davis, a communications expert, ensured the team stayed in touch with their command unit, no matter how far off the grid they went. Their journey took them to a remote part of the Nevada desert, an area known for its secrecy and isolation. The location was so remote that even the team felt uneasy about how far out they were. It was an eerie place, with nothing but sand and rock for miles. As they arrived, they noticed strange patterns in the landscape, almost as if something had disturbed the natural order of the land. Their task was clear: find the source of the disturbance, observe it, and then report back to headquarters. When they reached the area where the object had supposedly landed, they found something even more shocking than they had imagined. It wasn't just a single object. There, hidden in the vast desert, was a massive alien base. Not a ship, but a structure of sorts, partially buried in the earth. It looked like it had been there for some time, though it was well camouflaged against the desert landscape. The base was covered in materials that looked like nothing the team had ever seen before. Shiny, smooth surfaces that glistened even under the harsh sun, and strange symbols etched into the walls that didn't make any sense. The team immediately knew they were dealing with something far more advanced than anything Earth could build. They set up a perimeter around the base, trying to gather as much information as they could without being detected. However, they quickly realized they weren't alone. The base was guarded by beings that were clearly not human. The creatures that emerged from the shadows were humanoid, but their appearance was unsettling. They stood at least 8 feet tall, with long limbs and pale, almost translucent skin. Their faces were sharp, their eyes deep and dark, like pools of ink. They moved with an eerie grace, silently patrolling the area. The team had no choice but to stay hidden, watching from a distance. The beings didn't seem to notice them at first, but it was clear they were part of something much bigger. This wasn't just a random crash site. This was a full-scale operation. After several tense hours of observing the base, the team was preparing to leave when one of the aliens noticed a drone they had sent out earlier. It had been hovering above, trying to get a clearer view of the base. In an instant, the alien's head snapped toward the drone and the unit knew they had been spotted. The aliens, though much taller and seemingly more powerful, did not immediately attack. Instead, they seemed curious, confused. Kara gave the order to retreat, but as the team turned to leave, something happened. One of the aliens moved toward them, its body language non-threatening but alert. It raised a hand and a soft blue glow surrounded it. In that moment, Kara knew they had been marked, not just as an intruder, but as a species worth investigating further. The tension was unbearable. The team was trapped, but they stayed calm. Kara held up her hand to signal everyone to hold their ground. The alien didn't attack, but instead backed away slowly, as if unsure how to proceed. The rest of the aliens didn't move, but they watched, silent and calculating. After what felt like an eternity, the aliens backed off, disappearing into the shadows of their base. It was unclear whether they had decided to let the humans go, or if they were simply observing them. Regardless, the message was clear. They were not ready for open conflict, but they were very much aware of humanity's presence now. The human team retreated back to their extraction point, their hearts racing with both fear and awe. They had just encountered something far beyond their understanding, and the world would never be the same. As they made their way back to their base in Colorado, Kara couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. The aliens had seen them. They had marked them, and they were not the only ones watching. The team's discovery would soon ripple across the globe, and whatever came next would change humanity's place in the universe forever. This part sets the stage for the mystery and builds tension, keeping the reader interested in what will happen next. Would you like to continue with the next part or make any changes? After the tense encounter in the Nevada desert, Recon Unit 17 returned to their base in Colorado, their minds racing with everything they had just witnessed. What they had seen, an alien base hidden in plain sight, guarded by beings unlike anything they could imagine, was beyond anything they had ever trained for. The mission had been clear: observe, gather intel, and retreat. But nothing had prepared them for the reality of what they had encountered. As they boarded the military transport back to base, the silence among them was deafening. Kara Miles, the leader of Recon Unit 17, sat in the back of the transport, staring out the small window at the vast stretch of land below. Her thoughts raced. What did the aliens want? Why had they marked them? And why hadn't they attacked? Her mind spun with the possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. The entire world, she knew, was on the brink of a revelation, one that could change everything. Back at their secure facility, the team was immediately debriefed. Their commanders were eager to hear every detail, every piece of information the team could provide. But Kara noticed something strange. As much as their superiors seemed eager to understand what had happened, there was an underlying tension in the room, a sense that they weren't being told everything. For hours, the team reviewed the footage they had captured. The images were grainy and shaky, but they were enough to confirm what they had seen. A hidden alien base, beings far taller and stronger than humans, and technology that defied explanation. But there was one part of the footage that stood out, above all else. It was a moment when one of the aliens turned and looked directly at the camera. The expression on its face, if it could even be called an expression, was one of confusion, as though it had never seen a human before. Kara couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens weren't just observing. They were studying them. But why? And what did they want with Earth? As the team sat in the briefing room, Kara's mind raced. It wasn't long before they were called in to speak with the highest-ranking officials involved in the operation. The meeting was held in a high-security underground bunker, one that even the team hadn't known existed. The walls were lined, with screens and monitors, some showing live feeds from satellites, others showing data that made little sense to them. Kara and the rest of the team stood in front of a massive screen, the footage from their mission playing in slow motion. "Explain." "This moment," one of the officials said, pointing to the footage where the alien turned and locked eyes with the drone. Kara stepped forward, speaking in a calm, measured voice. "At first we thought we had been spotted," she said. "But after reviewing the footage, it seems like the alien wasn't reacting aggressively. It was more curious, like it had never seen anything like us before." There was a murmur of agreement among the team. The aliens had been confused, but they hadn't shown any hostility. They hadn't even tried to attack. It was as though they were studying them, learning about the humans in front of them, trying to understand them. Could they have been scouting us, just as we were scouting them? Sergeant Marcus Reed asked, looking at the footage with a furrowed brow. His mind, usually sharp and quick, was struggling to make sense of the strange situation. "I don't know," Kara replied. "But if they were scouting, it means they've been watching us for a while, maybe even longer than we've been aware of them." The room fell silent. No one had thought about that possibility. The idea that the aliens had been observing Earth long before the team's encounter sent a chill through everyone in the room. If the aliens had been watching for years, then they were far more advanced than anyone had realized. And if they were now choosing to make contact, it could mean something far more dangerous was on the horizon. For the next few days, the team was kept in isolation, their every movement tracked and analyzed. They were told that their encounter had been only the beginning, that the aliens had likely been watching Earth for some time, gathering data about humanity. But they were also warned that Earth's governments were still in the dark about the aliens' true intentions. The official line was that the alien base was simply a reconnaissance mission, nothing more, nothing less. But Kara couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was far more complicated. If the aliens had been watching for years, then they had likely studied humanity's strengths and weaknesses. And if they were now deciding to make themselves known, it meant that humanity had caught their attention in ways no one could understand. 3. Days that followed were filled with tension. Intelligence agencies around the world scrambled to analyze the data Recon Unit 17 had gathered. New satellite feeds were launched, and mysterious signals were intercepted, but nothing concrete came through. Meanwhile, the team was given little to do but wait and reflect on their experience. One night, while reviewing some of the data again, Kara noticed something strange. There, buried deep in the satellite imagery, was a faint signal, one that didn't belong. It wasn't a glitch but a deliberate pattern. The signal appeared to be coming from somewhere near the base in Nevada, but it wasn't like anything they had intercepted before. It was as if the aliens were trying to communicate. Kara brought the finding to Marcus, who was just as puzzled as she was. Together, they went through the data again, this time more carefully. The signal seemed to pulse almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't a human frequency, nor was it anything from Earth's technology. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate, to be a mistake. "We have to tell the others," Marcus said, his voice tense. "This could be important." But just as they were about to report their findings, something else happened. The entire base went dark. Every system, every monitor, every satellite feed. It was as if someone had hit the reset button on the entire operation. The team was left in complete darkness, with only their instincts to guide them. For the next few hours, they were on high alert. The alien base, which had been silent and hidden for so long, seemed to come alive. The team could hear faint noises, low hums and distant metallic sounds, as if the alien structure was shifting or waking up. Something was happening, and it wasn't just the interference with their communications. Kara and her team knew they were no longer just observers. They were part of something much bigger, something that could change the course of human history. The aliens had marked them, watched them, and now it seemed like they were making their next move. The next day, the power returned to the base, and the officials informed the team that they had received new orders. The aliens, it seemed, had made contact. The diplomats and military leaders were scrambling to respond, unsure of what to do next. Were the aliens preparing for an invasion? Or were they simply testing the waters? The one thing that was clear was that Recon Unit 17 had just become the key to understanding the biggest mystery humanity had ever faced. They were the first humans to encounter extraterrestrial life, and now they were the ones who would decide whether Earth would face the unknown with fear or curiosity. In the days that followed, the world seemed to hold its breath. Governments and intelligence agencies from across the globe scrambled to assess the implications of what had happened. The world had just learned that humanity was not alone in the universe, and now they had to deal with the consequences of first contact. For the leaders and scientists, it was both a moment of wonder and a terrifying realization. The alien race that had been spotted on Earth was far more advanced than anyone had expected. Recon Unit 17 was now at the center of this new reality. Their mission, which had started as a simple reconnaissance operation, had turned into something much more significant. They had seen the aliens with their own eyes. They had recorded footage of their base, and they had learned that the alien species, though not openly hostile, had been studying them, likely for much longer than humanity had been aware. But the real questions remained unanswered. What did the aliens want? Why had they come to Earth? And were they preparing for war, or was there another purpose to their visit? The alien leaders were already aware of Earth. It became clear very quickly that the encounter with Recon Unit 17 had changed everything for them. For the first time, they had seen humanity face to face, and the aliens, who had previously thought of Earth as just another unimportant planet in the galaxy, now understood that humanity was more complex and capable than they had imagined. In their vast hidden command vessel, high above Earth's atmosphere, the Alien Council convened in a rare emergency meeting. The leaders of the alien species, known as the Zarthians, were not the same beings that Recon Unit 17 had encountered on the surface. These leaders were the masterminds behind the entire operation. Their thoughts were cold and calculating, their strategies long in the making. The footage from the Nevada desert had reached them, and they were now trying to make sense of what had happened. Report. The highest-ranking leader, Verkosh, ordered. A smaller alien, an officer who had been monitoring the situation on Earth, stepped forward. The humans, these are not the creatures we anticipated. Their technology is crude compared to ours, but their tactics are unpredictable. The scouts we sent to assess their strength were outmaneuvered by a small human unit. It seems that they adapt quickly. There was a murmur among the council members, each one taking in the information with intense focus. The Zarthians had assumed that Earth was a primitive world, with humans no different from the countless species they had encountered in their vast exploration of the galaxy. But Recon Unit 17 had shown them that humanity was capable of far more than they had expected. The humans' adaptability, their resourcefulness, and their surprising courage had unsettled the Zarthian leaders. Are we to believe that such a small force is capable of standing against us? One of the council members asked, skeptical. They are nothing but insects compared to our strength. Verkosh, the leader, was silent for a moment. He had always believed that their race was superior, and that Earth was simply another planet to conquer. But now, after seeing the footage of the human scouts, he was unsure. The humans were not weak as they had assumed. If anything, they were resilient and unpredictable, two qualities that made them more dangerous than any advanced technology. Alone. This changes everything, Verkosh finally said. We will need to reconsider our approach. We will not underestimate these humans again. They are capable of more than we thought. The council went silent, their minds racing as they debated the next course of action. Some argued that Earth should be invaded immediately, to subdue the humans before they became a bigger threat. Others, however, suggested a more cautious approach. The Zarthians had been through countless wars, and their history was filled with conflicts where their initial assumptions had been wrong. Perhaps this time they should try a different strategy, one that didn't involve immediate destruction. It's clear that the humans have potential, Verkosh said, his voice steady but filled with a hint of respect. Perhaps we can use this to our advantage. Instead of waging war, we can learn from them. We've underestimated their resilience, but they might have something we need. The debate continued late into the night, But it became clear that the alien leaders were divided. Some wanted to launch a full-scale invasion and take control of Earth, while others believed that a more subtle approach was needed. Verkosh, however, had made up his mind. If they could convince the humans that they were not enemies but potential allies, they might gain something even more valuable: access to the human race's ingenuity and ability to adapt. The Zarthian Council finally decided on a course of action. They would send a diplomatic envoy to Earth, but not as conquerors. They would offer peace, but only on their own terms. The aliens were not ready to make full contact with the humans just yet, but they believed it was time to test the waters. If they could convince Earth's leaders that cooperation was possible, they might avoid a violent conflict. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the members of Recon Unit 17 were still processing the enormity of what they had just encountered. Their debriefing sessions had been long and intense, with military leaders and intelligence officers asking questions that they couldn't always answer. What had the aliens been doing on Earth? What was their goal? And why had they left without attacking? Kara Miles, the unit leader, couldn't stop thinking about the aliens' behavior. They had been cautious, almost curious, rather than aggressive. If they had wanted to destroy humanity, they could have done so easily. Yet they had chosen not to. There was something strange about it. Maybe the aliens had been waiting for the right moment to strike. Or perhaps, as the Zarthian leaders had suggested, they were testing humanity, trying to figure out what kind of species they were dealing with. Kara shared her thoughts with Marcus Reed, the team's tech expert. They sat in the briefing room reviewing the footage from their mission once again. This time they noticed something new. The alien base in the Nevada desert wasn't just a military outpost. It was a research facility. There were signs of experiments, technological structures that didn't fit with the idea of a simple scouting mission. The aliens had been studying Earth, and not just in the way humans might expect. They had been collecting data on everything: human behavior, the planet's ecosystems, even the animals. It was clear that they weren't just here to conquer. They were trying to understand. As the team continued to process their findings, they received a message from High Command. The aliens were going to make contact, but not in the way they had imagined. The message came through an encrypted channel, and it was brief. "We wish to meet with your leaders. Send your best negotiators. The future of your species depends on this." The news sent shockwaves through the military command. No one knew exactly what to expect, but everyone understood that this was a pivotal moment in human history. The aliens had shown an interest in Earth, and they were now offering peace, or so it seemed. Kara and her team were called in to meet with the top brass. They were told that they would be part of the delegation to meet with the aliens. It was a chance to speak directly with the beings that had captured their attention, and perhaps humanity's fate. As the team prepared to take on this new mission, they couldn't help but wonder what the aliens were really after. What were they hoping to achieve by meeting with humans? And what would happen if Earth refused? The future seemed uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. The world was on edge. After weeks of tense waiting, the day had finally arrived. The aliens had made it clear. They wanted to meet with humanity's leaders. The message was brief, but its implications were enormous. Was this the start of a peaceful interaction, or was it a trap? No one could say for sure. What was certain, however, was that humanity stood at the crossroads of a new era. Recon Unit 17, the same team that had witnessed the aliens firsthand, was now tasked with a new and more dangerous mission. They were going to be part of the delegation that would meet the alien envoy. For Kara Miles, Marcus Reed, and the rest of the team, this was uncharted territory. They had seen the aliens up close, but speaking to them, that was something else, entirely. The weight of what they were about to do pressed heavily on their shoulders. This wasn't just another mission. This was the future of humanity. The meeting was set to take place in a secure location in the middle of the ocean, far from prying eyes. The world's leaders, military officials, and top scientists were all going to be there, but the location itself was a closely guarded secret. The aliens, it seemed, wanted to speak directly to Earth's leaders, but they also didn't want anyone to know the exact location of the meeting. It was a precaution, but it also left everyone with a sense of unease. What could the aliens want with such secrecy? As the delegation made its way to the meeting site, there was an eerie silence. The air was thick with tension. Kara could see the worry etched on the faces of her team. They had been through so much already, but this was different. This wasn't about survival. This was about understanding, and that made it even more dangerous. The stakes were no longer just about protecting Earth. It was about whether or not humanity could forge a future with these alien beings, or if they would become enemies. When they arrived at the site, they were greeted by a massive, sleek alien ship. It hovered just above the ocean, its surface reflecting the sunlight in a way that made it look almost unreal. The ship was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. There were no wings, no exhaust systems, no visible means of propulsion. It was simply there, floating. The design was smooth with flowing lines that suggested both elegance and power. As they approached the ship, the air seemed to hum with an energy that was almost palpable. It was as if the ship itself was alive, its presence overwhelming. The alien delegation was waiting for them inside the ship. The team's instructions were clear. Remain calm, be respectful, and don't show any fear. Kara and her team were positioned near the back of the room, their roles as observers clear. The world's leaders were at the front, waiting to engage with the alien envoys. It was a historic moment, and no one knew what would come of it. The first step toward diplomacy, or the first step toward a conflict that could end humanity's existence. The aliens entered the room in silence. They were the same beings that Recon Unit 17 had encountered in the Nevada desert. Tall, with pale, almost translucent skin. Their eyes, large and black, seemed to take in everything in the room. There was a coldness to their gaze, but it was not aggressive. The way they moved was fluid, almost graceful, and their presence commanded respect. Verakosh, the leader of the Zarthians, stepped forward. His voice when he spoke was deep and resonant, like the sound of a thunderstorm building in the distance. "We come in peace," he said, his words slow and deliberate. "We have been observing your species for some time, and we wish to understand you better. We seek an alliance." The room fell silent. The leaders and diplomats exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to respond. An alliance? With beings that were so much more advanced than humans? Was this some kind of trick, or was it a genuine offer? Verakosh continued, "We are not here to conquer. We have no need for your resources or your land. What we seek is knowledge, and we believe that together, our species can achieve great things. Your potential is greater than you realize." The D words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. It was hard to believe. The aliens had made their intentions clear, but could they really be trusted? Could humanity trust them? The first to speak was the President of the United States, who had been selected as the leader of the Earth delegation. He was a seasoned politician, but even he seemed shaken by the presence of the aliens. "Why now?" he asked, his voice wavering slightly. "Why come to us now? What do you want in return for this alliance?" Verkosh's expression didn't change, but there was something in his eyes. Something that suggested he wasn't entirely sure how to answer the question. "We have been watching you," he said slowly. "Your species is at a crossroads. You are on the verge of discovering things that will change the course of your history. Your technology is advancing rapidly, and your ability to adapt is unlike anything we've seen in the universe. But you are also fragile, and if you continue down your current path, you may destroy yourselves before you can reach your true potential." His words sent a chill through the room. The idea that humanity could destroy itself was something that had been discussed in the halls of power for years, but hearing it from an alien species made it feel all too real. There was no denying the risks humanity faced: wars, climate change, and the constant threat of nuclear conflict. But to hear it from an extraterrestrial species that had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, it was sobering. Kara's thoughts wandered. The aliens seemed to be offering help, but at what cost? She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to their offer. Could they really be acting in humanity's best interest? Or was this simply another way to manipulate the humans into giving them what they wanted? Before anyone could respond, one of the other alien leaders, a smaller being who stood to the side, spoke up. "We have the technology to prevent your destruction," it said in a voice that was sharp but not unkind. "But in return, we ask for something from you." The tension in the room grew thicker. What did they want in return? The idea of trading something for the survival of humanity was terrifying. What could the aliens possibly want that would make them so certain of their offer? The president asked the question everyone was thinking. "What do you want from us?" The alien leader's gaze shifted to the humans as if weighing the question. "We seek your cooperation," it said simply. "In exchange for the knowledge and technology we offer, we want to work together to explore the stars. We want to share our knowledge, and we want your species to help us. The future is not one where we rule and you serve. It is one where we are equals. But for that, we need to know if you are ready to stand by our side, if you are willing to take the next step in your evolution." The room was filled with a heavy silence. The offer was tempting, almost too good to be true. The aliens were offering knowledge, technology, and a chance to explore the universe, things that humanity could never have imagined on its own. But there was still something about the deal that didn't sit right. Kara could feel the weight of the decision. This wasn't just about Earth's future. It was about the future of the human race. If they agreed, they would be entering into a partnership with an alien species that was far more powerful than anything they could understand. The president turned to the rest of the leaders in the room, his eyes filled with uncertainty. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Would they accept the aliens' offer? Would they trust these beings, whose true intentions were still unclear? Or would they reject it and risk the consequences of alien intervention? The decision would be made soon. But whatever the outcome, one thing was certain: the world had changed forever. The tension in the room was unbearable. The world's leaders sat frozen in their seats, their minds racing with questions. The offer from the aliens was unprecedented. The chance to explore the stars, to gain technology far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. How could anyone refuse that? But at the same time, how could anyone trust beings who had been secretly observing humanity for so long? Could they be trusted? Or was there a hidden agenda? Kara Miles stood at the back of the room, her mind working furiously. She had witnessed the aliens' technology firsthand and seen their capabilities. Yet something about the entire situation didn't sit right with her. The aliens were offering their help, yes, but what did they really want in exchange? They were asking for humanity's cooperation, but for what purpose? She couldn't help but wonder, what if this was all a trap? What if, after they gained humanity's trust, they had a much darker plan in mind? Beside her, Marcus Reed seemed just as uneasy. The team had gone through enough already, but this was something else. This wasn't a simple reconnaissance mission or a fight for survival. This was about making a decision that would affect the entire future of humanity. Could they afford to say no? What would the consequences be if they did? The president stood slowly, his face grave. "We need time to consider this offer," he said, his voice carrying the weight of the decision. "This is not something we can decide in an hour or a day. The future of Earth, of humanity, is at stake." Verkosh, the leader of the Zarthians, nodded. "Of course, we understand that such decisions take time, but know this: time is not on your side. The universe does not wait for those who hesitate. We are offering you a chance, a rare opportunity to change your destiny. But if you turn us away, the consequences will be dire." The last words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Kara could see the worry in the faces of the Earth's leaders. They had been given an incredible gift, but at the same time they were being warned. The aliens weren't making threats, they were simply stating a fact. The universe was a dangerous place, and humanity might not survive without their help. After a few moments of silence, the president sat down again. We will need to consult with our allies, with our scientists, with everyone who is involved. We cannot make this decision lightly. Verkosh seemed to consider this for a moment before speaking again. We will give you time, but understand that the clock is ticking. We are here because we believe you have the potential to join us in the stars, but if you waste that potential, you may never have another chance. With those final words, the alien delegation turned and began to leave the room. Their presence was as overwhelming as it had been when they first entered. But now there was something else in the air, a sense of finality. The decision had been put into the hands of humanity. The aliens were offering their hand, but the question was, would humanity take it? As the room emptied, the leader stood in a daze, unsure of what to say or do. It was the most monumental decision anyone had ever faced, and yet, it seemed impossible to know which choice was right. Kara and her team were ushered out of the meeting room and into a secure location nearby. The tension among them was palpable. They had seen what the aliens could do, and they knew better than anyone how advanced their technology was. But what did that really mean? Was this an opportunity for humanity to grow and advance? Or was it a dangerous gamble that could lead to their downfall? For hours the team sat in silence, the weight of the decision pressing on their minds. They were given a brief break to rest, but none of them felt like eating or sleeping. Instead, they found themselves lost in thought, each of them grappling with the implications of what had just happened. Kara couldn't stop thinking about the aliens' words. "Time is not on your side," Verkosh had said. But why? What were they really offering humanity? They had said they wanted cooperation, but could they truly be trusted? She remembered the way they had observed Earth from a distance for so long, waiting for the right moment to make contact. What had they learned during that time? Were they really looking out for humanity's best interests? Marcus seemed to read her mind. "I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this than we're being told," he said quietly. "The way they're offering us a partnership, it doesn't feel like something they do often." "What's in it for them?" Kara nodded. "Exactly, why now? Why after all these years of watching us? They could have come earlier, or they could have just attacked and taken what they wanted. But they're offering an alliance. It doesn't make sense." The team fell silent again, each of them lost in their thoughts. They were just soldiers, not diplomats or leaders. They had seen the aliens, but they weren't the ones who would make the final decision. That responsibility lay with the leaders of Earth. Eventually, they were called back to the meeting room. The leaders had reached a decision. The president stood before them again, his face a mask of uncertainty. "We've had our discussions, and we've consulted with our allies. The decision has been made." Kara felt a knot form in her stomach. This was it. Whatever decision the leaders had made, it would shape the future of the human race. "The Earth has decided to accept the aliens' offer," the president continued. "We will enter into a partnership with the Zarthians. We will work with them to explore the stars, to share knowledge, and to ensure humanity's survival. But we will also take every precaution to ensure that we retain control of our own destiny." A murmur ran through the room. Some of the leaders seemed relieved while others looked uneasy. It was clear that the decision hadn't been easy, but in the end, the potential benefits of working with the aliens outweighed the risks. The chance to explore space, to tap into technologies that could solve Earth's problems. How could anyone say no to that? But Kara couldn't shake the feeling that they had just taken a step into the unknown. The aliens had made it clear that the clock was ticking. If humanity didn't cooperate, they might never get another chance. But could humanity trust these beings who had watched from the shadows for so long? Or were they simply waiting for the right moment to reveal their true intentions? As the room emptied and the meeting drew to a close, Kara found herself staring out at the ocean, lost in thought. The future of humanity had just changed forever. But the question remained. Had they made the right choice? The partnership with the aliens might hold incredible promise, but it could also come with a price they hadn't yet understood. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same again.